Charlie Munger's 5 Psychology Lessons Men Learn Too Late in Life. The late Charlie Munger spent most of his life studying why smart people make foolish decisions. He didn't limit himself to investing. He studied the mind itself, and he said exactly what he thought about the mental traps that quietly ruin men long before they notice the damage. Most men figure these lessons out decades too late, usually right after the bill for psychological mistakes comes due. 1. Never underestimate the distorting power of incentives. Young men try to change minds with logic. They bring facts, charts, moral arguments, whatever seems persuasive at the time. None of it works the way they expect, and it takes years to find out why. Human behavior follows the paycheck. If a person's income, status, or comfort depends on them not understanding your point, they won't understand it. Not because they are stupid. Because their livelihood is wired to oppose you. I think I've been in the top 5% of my age cohort all my life in understanding the power of incentives, and all my life, I've underestimated it. And never a year passes, but I get some surprise that pushes my limit a little further. Charlie Munger. Munger said this after decades of watching incentives operate in boardrooms, courtrooms, and dinner conversations. He was still surprised by it. That alone should knock some of the confidence out of anyone who thinks they've got incentives figured out. 2. Envy is a fool's game that destroys from within. Boys grow up comparing cars, grades, girlfriends, jobs, houses. By the time most men are 40, they've spent 20 years on a treadmill that never stops, because there is always someone ahead of them on it. Envy is strange among the vices. Greed usually gets you something. Lust usually gets you something. Envy gets you nothing but the discomfort of watching someone else have it. A man can build a fortune and still feel poor if his attention is locked on his neighbor's bigger fortune instead of his own life. Envy is a really stupid sin because it's the only one you could never possibly have any fun with. There's a lot of pain and no fun. Why would you want to get on that trolley? Charlie Munger. Munger framed it almost like a math problem. Pain on one side, zero benefit on the other. He couldn't understand why anyone would willingly choose that trade, and once you see it laid out that plainly, it's hard to disagree with him. 3. Misery is guaranteed if you feed toxic mental habits. The brain is shaped by repetition. Every grudge replayed, every slight rehearsed, every "I'll show them" daydream wears a groove into how a man thinks. Most men don't notice this happening because each thought feels harmless on its own. Munger didn't treat resentment and self-pity as minor character flaws. He treated them as dangerous habits with measurable consequences. A man who lets self-pity run unchecked for years doesn't stay where he started. He drifts somewhere much darker. Generally speaking, envy, resentment, revenge, and self-pity are disastrous modes of thought. Self-pity gets fairly close to paranoia, and paranoia is one of the very hardest things to reverse. You do not want to drift into self-pity. Self-pity will not improve the situation. Charlie Munger. The paranoia warning is the part most men skip past. A habit of feeling sorry for yourself doesn't stay small. Left alone long enough, it can twist into something close to delusion, and Munger was blunt that reversing that is brutally hard. 4. Avoiding stupidity is better than chasing brilliance. Culture sells men on greatness. Build the empire, make the genius move, become the legend. Munger spent his career arguing the opposite case, and he had the track record to back it up. His method was simpler than it sounds. Skip the ego-driven emotional swings. Skip the leveraged debt that can wipe you out in a single bad month. Skip the people who quietly drain your time and judgment. Do that consistently for 30 years, and you'll outlast almost everyone who was chasing brilliance instead. It is remarkable how much long-term advantage people like us have gotten by trying to be consistently not stupid, instead of trying to be very intelligent. Charlie Munger. This idea runs counter to almost everything men are taught about ambition. Discipline doesn't look impressive at a dinner party. It just quietly wins over 20 years while the flashier guy ruin themselves through bad ego-driven and greedy decisions. 5. Ideology and pride lock your own mind in place. Plenty of men anchor their identity to being right. Politics, business strategy, the proper way to grill a steak it doesn't matter. Once the opinion is stated out loud, defending it becomes more important than the truth itself. Munger thought this was one of the most expensive habits a mind could develop. The instant you take a strong public position based on your opinion, you've made it personally costly to change your mind. So you stop looking for reasons to change it, even when the evidence is right in front of you. I have what I call an iron prescription that helps me keep sane when I naturally drift toward preferring one ideology over another. And that is, I say, I'm not entitled to have an opinion on this subject, unless I can state the arguments against my position better than the people do who are supporting it. I think only when I reach that state am I qualified to speak. Charlie Munger. Few men hold themselves to that bar. It takes far less effort to defend a position than to sit with the possibility that the other side has a point, and most men never bother to try. Conclusion. None of these 5 lessons is complicated. Incentives, envy, toxic habits, stupidity, and pride show up in nearly every man's life at some point, usually more than once. What Munger offered wasn't a secret. It was permission to notice these patterns earlier, rather than wait for the slow, expensive version of the lesson. Most men learn this the hard way. The ones who read Munger early get to skip a few of the worst years. For more about your personal development, consider to subscribe and hit the notification bell.